We often think of ancient Greece and immediately picture the Parthenon, maybe Socrates or those fierce Spartans. But what if I told you that long before those familiar names, well, something truly remarkable was already happening way back in the Eastern Mediterranean? Civilizations of incredible sophistication and, honestly, quite a bit of mystery rose and fell. And they really laid the groundwork for everything that came after. Our mission today is a deep dive into that fascinating, often overlooked period, the Bronze Age of Greece. We're going to pull back the curtain on two major civilizations, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. We know about them almost entirely through some really incredible archaeological discoveries. So this is basically your shortcut to understanding who these people were, what they managed to achieve, and why their stories, their triumphs, and, well, their mysterious disappearances are just so compelling. Get ready for some surprising facts, maybe a few aha moments along the way. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's journey back in time. We're talking Eastern Mediterranean, roughly 5,300 to 3,150 years ago. So that's approximately 3,500 down to 1,200 BCE.
It really is a period that reshapes how you think about early European history. What's often surprising is realizing just how complex these societies were. You know, advanced engineering, intricate political structures, and this was millennia before the Roman Empire, even before classical Greece as we usually picture it. It fundamentally challenges that sort of linear idea of progress we sometimes have.
That's a really powerful point. When you say far more advanced, maybe give us an example, something that really illustrates that, because I think a lot of listeners might be picturing something, well, much more primitive. Let's start with the Minoans. They were based on the island of Crete, right? Dominating from around 3,500 to 1,200 BCE. And when you think Minoans, you absolutely have to think about their architecture, those palaces like Knossos. Just astounding.
Indeed. And these weren't simply royal homes. They were huge, sprawling, almost self-contained communities.
Yeah.
We're talking about incredibly advanced features for the time. Things like, well, what looks very much like sophisticated indoor plumbing.
Indoor plumbing. That's
Right.
incredible.
Right. And within these complexes, you'd find workshops, massive storerooms packed with goods, treasuries, and these big open spaces.
Yeah.
Probably for communal rituals, dances, that kind of thing. It really paints a picture of a highly organized society. Self-sufficient in many ways, and certainly prosperous.
It's amazing to imagine. I mean, thousands of years ago. Makes you wonder what else they had that we haven't found yet. And their culture, it had such a unique feel, especially their rituals involving bulls. You see it all over their artwork, this bull leaping stuff. What do archaeologists think was the point? It looks incredibly dangerous. Was it just religious or maybe some kind of, I don't know, rite of passage?
That's a great question, and honestly, scholars still debate it. It seems likely it was a significant religious ritual, maybe tied to fertility or renewal. But the sheer athleticism involved, yeah, it strongly suggests it could also have been an initiation rite, maybe for young men, maybe even women. And it's fascinating how this practice, this imagery, seems to echo later in the Greek myth of the Minotaur, you know? It left a real cultural mark. Beyond the rituals, their trade networks were just incredible, really extensive, reaching all the way to Egypt, Cyprus, the Levant.
Wow.
Yeah, and you see this clear reciprocal influence, Minoan styles showing up far away and foreign goods turning up on Crete. It was a two-way street.
They even had their own writing system, linear, mostly for keeping records, it seems. But here's the really baffling part, the one that always gets me. We still can't read it. As an expert, what's that like to have these records, these potential insights, but be basically locked out?
Oh, it's both incredibly frustrating and highly motivating, actually. Imagine finding someone's detailed diary, but it's in a code only they knew. That's kind of what it feels like. We have all this potential information about their administration, their economy, maybe even their beliefs, but we can't access it because no other related script exists, no Rosetta Stone moment. It leaves huge questions unanswered. And their decline around 1450 BCE when the palaces were destroyed, that's another big puzzle.
Right. And the possible causes seem to involve this mix of, well, really powerful natural forces and maybe human conflict, too. You're talking huge earthquakes, maybe that enormous volcanic eruption on Thera, Santorini, possibly triggering tsunamis.
Exactly. Catastrophic events.
But then there's also the possibility of invasion, perhaps by those Mycenaeans from mainland Greece. It gets really interesting there, doesn't it? Seeing how nature and perhaps early warfare shaped their fate.
Absolutely. And it leads us nicely to those very Mycenaeans. They were primarily on the Greek mainland, with Mycenae itself as their largest city. Their civilization goes back to maybe the 17th century BCE, and they offer a really striking contrast to the Minoans.
Yeah, definitely seems like a more militaristic society. Is that fair to say?
I think so. Their palaces weren't just grand administrative centers. They were heavily fortified, often built on high, defensible ground. And their art, it's full of battle scenes, warriors, chariots, weapons are everywhere.
Right. And their political structure was different, too. Not one big kingdom, like maybe Crete was, but independent city-states, each ruled by a king, a one-axe, they called him.
Exactly. That structure itself suggests a more competitive, maybe fragmented, perhaps even aggressive political landscape compared to what we think existed on Minoan Crete.
And what about their economy? Trade must have been important for them, too.
Oh, absolutely. Their trade was also widespread, though maybe focused differently. They exported a lot of things like olive oil and wine, valuable commodities across the Mediterranean. And crucially, they imported metals, copper and tin especially, essential for making bronze.
Hence the Bronze Age.
Precisely. And we find Mycenaean pottery literally all over the Mediterranean basin. Italy, Egypt, the Levant, it really shows their reach, their economic clout.
And fascinatingly, they also had a writing system, Linear B, which crucially was adapted from the Minoan Linear A. But the huge difference here is we can read Linear B, and it turns out to be an early form of Greek.
That was the massive breakthrough. Michael Ventress's decipherment in the 1950s, it was monumental. Unlike Linear A, Linear B gives us this incredible window, mostly into their bureaucracy, mind you. It's mainly administrative records, lists of officials, different occupations, inventories of goods, jars of oil, numbers of livestock, chariot parts, you name it, even details about offerings to gods.
Wow. So it's not literature, but it's the nuts and bolts of their society.
Exactly. Mundane details, perhaps, but incredibly insightful about how their society actually worked day to day.
Yet, even with these differences, fortified cities, different writing, it's interesting how much they seem to have shared culturally with the Minoans.
Yeah.
You mentioned bull leaping appearing in their art too, right?
Yeah.
And other similarities.
Yes, absolutely. We see echoes in religious symbols, maybe shared deities, similar kinds of ceremonial processions depicted in frescoes involving both men and women. It suggests more than just trade contact. It points towards a shared Age and Bronze Age cultural sphere, maybe common roots stretching way back.
Right. It adds another layer of complexity to their relationship, which naturally brings us to one of the biggest legends connected to this era, the Trojan War. Homer's Iliad, it's such an epic story. But the burning question is always, did the Mycenaeans actually fight at Troy? Is there history behind the myth?
Ah, Troy. Well, what's fascinating here is how archaeology gives us these tantalizing clues, but often stops short of definitive answers. We know the site identified as Troy was definitely real. It existed for centuries, and archaeological digs show it was destroyed violently more than once. There are layers of destruction.
Okay, so the city was real, and it saw conflict.
Yes, but is there specific, undeniable proof that the Mycenaeans were responsible for any particular destruction layer that fits the time frame? No, not definitive proof.
So tantalizing, but not conclusive from the digs alone.
Precisely. But then you have this other intriguing piece of evidence, Hittite records. From Anatolia, modern Turkey, dating to around 1250 BCE, they mention conflicts with the powerful kingdom to the west, sometimes referred to using names that might relate to the Achaeans, Homer's term for the Greeks.
A Western people. Could that be the Mycenaeans?
It could. It's debated, of course, but it does offer potential external corroboration for major conflicts involving Mycenaean-era Greeks in that region around that time. It hints at a possible historical core to the legend.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How much of these ancient stories might be echoes of real events, filtered through centuries of storytelling, versus how much is, pure myth?
That's the million-dollar question for archaeologists and historians working on this period, sifting through the layers, both literal earth and layers of myth.
And speaking of dramatic events and puzzles, we absolutely have to talk about the end of this era, the Bronze Age collapse. Because around 1250 BCE, something drastic happens. Both Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations seem to experience this sudden, widespread, and pretty violent upheaval. These grand palaces, the fortified cities, many were destroyed, burned, or just abandoned. So what on earth was going on? What does it all mean for these powerful societies?
It's one of the great mysteries of ancient history. The causes are still hotly debated, and the most likely answer is probably, a combination of factors hitting around the same time, a perfect storm almost.
Like what kind of factors?
Yeah. Well, several possibilities are on the table. Invasions are a big one, particularly by groups known collectively as the Sea Peoples. These mysterious confederations of maritime raiders appear in Egyptian records, causing havoc across the eastern Mediterranean. Their origins are unclear, but they seem to have been a major destabilizing force.
Okay, so external attacks, What else?
Natural disasters are another strong contender. Evidence suggests possible periods of prolonged drought affecting agriculture, or maybe earthquake storm series of major quakes destabilizing regions.
That could certainly cripple a society.
Definitely. And then there's the possibility of internal factors, social unrest, peasant revolts, systems collapse from within due to resource strain or political instability. Most scholars today think it wasn't just one thing, but a convergence of several of these pressures that pushed these societies past their breaking point.
And the result, the consequence of this collapse was just profound, wasn't it? It leads into what historians call the Greek Dark Age, a period of about 300 years,
Yeah, a long time.
where evidence for things like big cities, organized trade, even writing just seems to vanish. It's like the lights went out.
It really is like that, a dramatic simplification of society, a loss of complexity, a population decline, almost a societal amnesia until things slowly start to reemerge, leading towards archaic and classical Greece. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, the whole Bronze Age collapse across the Mediterranean and Near East, it's just a powerful reminder. A reminder of how fragile, even sophisticated, seemingly stable societies can be when faced with multiple interlocking crises.
It truly is. Looking back, the Minoans and Mycenaeans, even with their mysterious ends, they achieved so much. They really did lay an incredible foundation for what came later in Greek culture. Their legacies, you can see them in the architecture, the trade routes they established, those early writing systems, and even in the myths, like Knossos and Troy, that still capture our imagination today.
Absolutely. They demonstrate that the path to classical Greece wasn't simple or direct. There were these earlier peaks of incredible achievement and complexity.
It shows us that even before the names we usually think of with ancient Greece, there were these vibrant, advanced societies thriving, trading, fighting, and shaping the future in ways we're, frankly, still only beginning to fully grasp.
And that enduring mystery of the collapse, plus things like undeciphered linear A, it just highlights how much more there might be to discover. You have to wonder what other secrets are still buried, waiting to maybe reshape our understanding all over again. So thinking about all this, what stands out most to you about these, well, forgotten empires? And what do you think their story tells us about how we understand history itself?